Hey, how are you? In this video, we will be explain the season The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power is an upcoming American fantasy television series based on the novel The Lord of the Rings and its appendices by J.R.R. Tolkien, developed by showrunners J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay for the streaming service Prime Video. The series is set thousands of years before Tolkien's The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings in the Second Age of Middle-earth. It is produced by Amazon Studios with the Tolkien Estate and Trust, HarperCollins and New Line Cinema. The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, genre action adventure drama fantasy, based on The Lord of the Rings and its appendices by J.R.R. Tolkien, developed by J.D. Payne, Patrick McKay, starring country of origin United States, original language English, executive producers J.D. Payne, Patrick McKay, Lindsay Weber, Callum Green, J.A. Bayona, Belen Atienza, Justin Doble, Jason Cahill, Jennifer Hutchison, Bruce Richmond, Sharon Tull Uadu. Producers Ron Ames, Christopher Newman. Production locations New Zealand, United Kingdom. Production companies Amazon Studios, Tolkien Estate, Tolkien Trust, HarperCollins, New Line Cinema. Distributor Amazon Studios. Release Original Network Prime Video. Amazon bought the television rights for The Lord of the Rings for US $250 million in November 2017, making a 5-season production commitment worth at least US $1 billion. This would make it the most expensive television series ever made. Payne and McKay were hired in July 2018, with the rest of the creative team publicly revealed a year later. The series is primarily based on the appendices of The Lord of the Rings, which include discussion of the Second Age, and it features a large cast from around the world. For legal reason, it is not a direct continuation of The Lord of the Rings and Hobbit film trilogies, but the production intended to evoke the films with similar production design and younger versions of characters who appear in them. Filming for the first 8-episode season took place in New Zealand, where the films were produced from February 2020 to August 2021, with a production break of several months. During that time, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the season is scheduled to premiere on Prime Video on September 2, 2022. In August 2021, Amazon announced that production for future seasons would take place in the United Kingdom. Filming for the second season is expected to begin by mid-2022. Premise set thousands of years before the events of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. The series is based on author J.R.R. Tolkien's history of Middle-earth. It begins during a time of relative peace and covers all the major events of Middle-earth's Second Age: the forging of the Rings of Power, the risk of the Dark Lord Sauron, the fall of the Island Kingdom of Numenor, and the last alliance between elves and men. These events take place over thousands of years in Tolkien's original stories but are condensed for the series. Episodes: Number 1, title Shadow of the Past, directed by J.A. Bayona, written by J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay, television story by J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay, original release date September 2, 2022. J.A. Bayona also directed the second episode. Wayne Yip directed 4 episodes of the season, and Charlotte Brandstrom directed 2. Cast and characters: Cynthia Adai Robinson as Miriel, a human and queen regent of Numenor; Robert Aramayo as Irlond, a half-elven architect and politician. He goes from being optimistic and eager to word-weary and closed off throughout the series. Owain Arthur as Durin IV, Prince of the Dwarven city of Khazad-dûm; Maxim Baldry as Isildur, a human sailor and Elendil's son who will eventually become a warrior and king. The writers wanted to explore Isildur's story more than the source material, so the audience would feel that it ends in tragedy rather than foolishness. Co-showrunner Patrick McKay compared the character to Al Pacino's Michael Corleone from from The Godfather 1972. Nazanin Boni Eddy as Bronwyn, a human mother and healer who owns an apothecary in the Southlands. Morfydd Clark as Galadriel, an elven warrior who believes evil in returning to Middle-earth. Tolkien had described Galadriel in her youth as being a strong fighter of Amazon disposition, and the series shows her journey from that point to becoming the elder stateswoman that the character is more commonly known as. Ismail Cruz Cordova as Arondir, a Sylvan elf with a forbidden love for the human healer Bronwyn, similar to Tolkien's love stories about Beren and Luthien and Aragorn and Arwen. Charles Edwards as Celebrimber, the elven smith who forges the rings of power. Tristan Gravel as Pharazôn, a human advisor to Queen Regent Miriel. Lenny Henry as Sadok Boros, a Harfoot elder. Emma Horvath as Arian, Elendil's daughter. Markela Kavanagh as Eleanor. Nori Brandifort, a curious Harfoot. Simon Mireles as Trevane. Tyroi Mahafidin as Theo, Bronwyn's son. Sophia Nomvete as Disa, Princess of Devervan, city of Khazad-dûm. Lloyd Owen as Elendil, a human sailor, father to Isildur and Arian, the future High King of Arnor and Gondor. Megan Richards as Poppy Proudfellow, a curious Harfoot. Dalen Smith as Largo Brandyfoot. Charlie Vickers as Halbrand, a human running from his past whose destiny is entwined with Galadriel's. Leon Vedam as Cayman, Pharazôn's son. Benjamin Walker as Gil-galad, the High King of the Elves who rules from the realm of Lindon. Daniel Wayman as the Stranger. Sarah Zvengobani as Marigold Brandyfoot. The following actors have been cast in undisclosed roles: Ian Blackburn, B.O. Cassidy, Kip Chapman, Emily Child Villiers, Anthony Crum, Maxine Cunliffe, Will Fletcher, Thusitha Jaya Sundera, Joseph Marvel, Fabian McCallum, Geoff Morrell, Peter Mullan, Augustus Pirro, Peter Tate, Alex Tarrant. Production development. In July 2017, a lawsuit was settled between Warner Bros., the studio behind the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit film trilogies, and the estate of author J.R.R. Tolkien, upon whose books those films are based. With the two sides on better terms, they began offering the rights to a potential television series based on Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings to several outlets, including Amazon, Netflix, and HBO, with a starting price of $200 million. Amazon emerged as the frontrunner by September and entered negotiations uncommonly for programming developments at the studio. Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos was personally involved with the negotiations. Bezos is a big fan of the franchise, and he had previously given Amazon Studios a mandate to develop an ambitious fantasy series of comparable scale to HBO's Game of Thrones, which made Amazon the lead contender for the project. On November 13, 2017, Amazon acquired the global television rights for close to $250 million. Industry commentators described this amount before any production costs and without any creative talent attached to the project as insane. Thus, some considered the project to be more of a reputational risk for Amazon than a financial one due to Bezos' wealth. Amazon's streaming service Prime Video gave a multi-season commitment to the series that was believed to be for 5 seasons, with the possibility of a spin-off series as well. Despite this, Prime Video had to give a formal green light to future seasons before work could begin on them. The budget was expected to be in the range of $100 to $150 million per season and was likely to eventually exceed $1 billion, which would make it the most expensive television series ever made. Warner Bros. Television was not involved in the project because Amazon Studios wanted to produce it themselves. Amazon is working with the Tolkien estate and trust, HarperCollins and New Line Cinema, the Warner Bros. Division who produced the films, with New Line included due to the potential for the series to use material for the films. The Tolkien estate imposed some creative restrictions on the series, and the deal stipulated stated that production began within 2 years. Seasons. Prime Video gave the series a multi-season commitment believed to be for 5 seasons. As part of the initial deal with the Tolkien estate, thus the streaming service still had to give a formal green light to future seasons before work could begin on them. In July 2019, Shippey stated that he believed the first season of the series was supposed to consist of 20 episodes. In November, Amazon officially ordered a second season of the series and scheduled a longer than usual 4 or 5 month production break after completion of filming on the first 2 episodes. This was to allow all the footage for the first episodes to be revived, and so the series writers room could be reconvenced to begin work on the second season before filming on the first season continued. This gave the series the option to film the first 2 seasons back to back as the Lord of the Rings films had been. Amazon announced that the first season would consist of 8 episodes in January 2020 and revealed the series full title The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power in January 2020. Payne and Mackay felt the title could live on the spine of a book next to J.R.R. Tolkien's other classics. Season 1 table reads with the cast began in New Zealand by mid-January 2020 ahead of the start of filming in early February. The production was based in Auckland, primarily at Cameo Film Studios and Auckland Film Studios, and used the working title Untitled Amazon Project or simply UAP. Bayona directed the first 2 episodes. Oscar Fora, who served as director of photography on all of Bayona's previous films, returned to work with Bayona on the series. Aaron Morton and Alex Dizanoff also worked as cinematographers on the first season. While rehearsing a stunt of Cameo on February 7, stunt woman Elisa Cadwell was injured when she struck her head while falling into a water tank. Amazon revived the incident and notified New Zealand's workplace health and safety regulator WorkSafe on February 14. By then, Caldwell was recovering from her injuries after being treated in hospital. Amazon paid Caldwell New Zealand $500,000, which was partially to help her return home to Australia. Location filming took place around Auckland in February. Filming for the first 2 episodes was expected to continue through May, with a 4 or 5 month production break then planned, during which footage for the 2 episodes would be revived and writing on the second season would begin. Production was scheduled to resume in mid-October and continue until late June 2021. However, filming was placed on hold indefinitely in mid-March 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic, with around 800 cast and crew members told to stay home. In early May, the majority of filming for the first 2 episodes was confirmed to have been completed before the COVID-19 shutdown. Filming on the series was allowed to resume then under new safety guidelines from the New Zealand government, but instead of completing filming for the first 2 episodes at that time, the filming shutdown segued into the intended production break. The filming for the first 2 episodes set to be completed. Once filming on further episodes was ready to begin, the series was one of 7 film and television productions that were granted exemptions to allow cast and crew members to enter New Zealand while its borders were closed to non-New Zealanders due to the COVID-19. The exemptions were granted before June 18 by Economic Development Minister Phil Twyford and applied to 93 members of the production as well as 20 family members. Around 10% of the series crew were believed to be non-New Zealanders, and many of them had remained in the country during its pandemic lockdown and did not require exemptions. Pre-production on further episodes began by July 2020 and filming on the series resumed on September 28. Bayona completed filming on his episodes by December 23, with production on further episodes set to begin in January 2021. Following a 2-week break for Christmas, Yip confirmed that he had begun filming his episodes by March, and Brandstorm was in New Zealand for production on the series when she was announced as director in May. Walker said at the end of June that he was not sure how much longer the cast would be required to stay in New Zealand, saying the timeline for the production was a bit nebulous and Amazon would let us go when they are done with us. In early July, several stunt performers alleged that a senior stunt supervisor for the production had created an uneasy environment that contributed to an unsafe workplace, with at least 3 stunt performers being seriously injured on the set. This included stunt woman Dana Grant, who suffered a head injury on set in March and was diagnosed with a brain aneurysm and upper spinal injury. Fans crowdfunded New Zealand $100,000 to help Grant pay for surgery. The production's head of safety, Willie Heatley, said the injury rate 0.065% across the 16,200 days of stunt work on the series since filming began, and this was mostly due to common stunt related sprains, bruises, and muscle and soft tissue strains. Amazon Studios said safety was a top priority for the company and they were following all of WorkSafe's regulations. In late July, main production for the first season was reported to have been completed in April 2021. Filming for the first season officially wrapped on August 2. Around a third of filming took place on location around New Zealand, including at the Hauraki Gulf, the Coromandel Peninsula, the Denise Bluffs in the King Country, Mount Kidd in Fiordland, Piha and Rangitikei. The showrunners noted that, unlike the films, they were able to use New Zealand's coastlines for this story. They had also intended to film in the Waitomo Caves for scenes set in the city of Khazad-dum, but this proved to be impractical. More than 1,000 New Zealanders were contracted for the season, with around 700 more indirectly engaged by it. Season 2 pre-production for the second season is expected to begin in the UK in the second quarter of 2022, taking place concurrently with post-production for the first season, which is continuing in New Zealand until June 2022. Bray Film Studios and Bovingdon Airfield, both outside of London, will be the initial production locations for the season. Filming on the second season is expected to begin by the middle of the year. Release: The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power is scheduled to premiere on the streaming service Prime Video on September 2, 2022, with new episodes released on a weekly basis.